The knife hit the cutting board so hard the entire kitchen went silent. "Throw her out." The scream echoed across the crowded food market just as a bowl of steaming kimchi stew crashed onto the floor. Amara Brooks didn't flinch. 7 months pregnant woman, wearing a flour-stained chef's jacket, she calmly picked up another bowl, wiped the counter clean, and looked straight at the furious man standing in front of her. "If you're done yelling," she said quietly, "the customers are still waiting for their food." The crowd gasped. The man glaring at her wasn't just another restaurant owner. He was Kang Dae-hyun, the eldest son of Korea's most powerful restaurant empire. His family's company, Kang Dynasty Foods, owned hundreds of luxury Korean restaurants across Asia. Their flagship restaurant stood directly across the street. And today, a tiny restaurant owned by a pregnant black chef had more customers than they did. Before the story gets even crazier, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Trust us, you'll want to stay until the very last minute, because one secret is about to change everything. Dae-hyun leaned closer. "You've made your last sale." Amara smiled politely. "We'll see." The line outside her restaurant stretched around the corner. People weren't coming because she was famous. They came because her food reminded them of home. After years of studying Korean cuisine under retired grandmothers in Busan, learning forgotten family recipes no restaurant bothered serving anymore, she'd blended tradition with subtle African flavors that somehow felt familiar instead of foreign. The result was unforgettable. Every bite carried warmth. Every meal told a story. Within 3 weeks of opening, food bloggers called her restaurant soul's best hidden treasure. Customers waited 2 hours for a table. And Kang Dynasty Foods was bleeding money. Inside the Kang headquarters, executives stared nervously at falling revenue charts. "This woman has reduced reservations by 38%. Influencers are recommending her over us. Our investors are asking questions." Dae-hyun slammed his fist onto the table. "I don't care what it costs. I want that restaurant gone." Across town, Amara laughed as an elderly customer hugged her. "You cook exactly like my grandmother." Tears filled the old woman's eyes. "I haven't tasted this in 40 years. Amara hugged her back. "Then come back tomorrow." The old woman smiled. "I will." She had no idea someone was photographing everything from a black SUV parked outside. That night, the attacks began. Anonymous reviews flooded every website. 1-star ratings. Fake food poisoning claims. Videos accusing Amara of stealing recipes. Within 24 hours, her perfect rating dropped below 3 stars. Her employees panicked. "We're losing reservations. We should respond." Amara shook her head. "No. But the truth doesn't need to shout." Her calm surprised everyone, especially Marcus, her head chef and closest friend. "They're trying to bury you." "I know. Aren't you angry?" She smiled while kneading the dough. "Anger burns food." Marcus couldn't help laughing. "You really are impossible." The next morning, inspectors arrived. Health inspectors, tax officials, fire safety officers, immigration investigators. Every government agency imaginable. Customers watched nervously. The inspection lasted 9 hours. When it ended, every official signed the same paper. No violations found. Customers applauded. Business doubled. Across the street, Dae-hyun crushed a crystal glass. "How?" One executive hesitated. "She's clean." "Everyone has a weakness." "Apparently not." Dae-hyun's eyes darkened. "Find one." 3 days later, someone slashed the restaurant's delivery van tires. The following night, every supplier canceled. "I'm sorry. We can't risk doing business with you. We've been warned." Marcus stared at the empty storage room. "What do we do?" Amara picked up her phone. She called a fisherman, then a vegetable farmer, then an elderly woman who made handmade soy sauce. By sunrise, local families arrived carrying fresh ingredients themselves. We heard what happened, so we're delivering personally. You fed our families. Now we'll help you. Marcus watched dozens of people unload vegetables, seafood, spices, rice, and meat. No corporation can compete with this. Amara smiled. Kindness always has suppliers. Business tripled. News channels began covering the story. Viewers loved her. Customers came from every corner of Seoul. Some waited 4 hours. Others brought flowers for Amara. One little girl handed her a handwritten note. My mommy says you're brave. Amara bent down carefully. And what do you think? The girl smiled. I think your baby is lucky. Amara nearly cried. Meanwhile, inside Kong headquarters, investors weren't smiling. Our stock keeps falling. Why are we losing to one small restaurant? Dae-hyun exploded. Because everyone suddenly loves a charity story. One elderly board member quietly cleared his throat. Or perhaps, her food is simply better. Silence. Dae-hyun slowly turned. What did you say? I said. The old director looked him straight in the eye. People don't line up for sympathy. They line up for excellence. He stood. You've forgotten that. He walked out. 2 hours later, he was fired. That evening, Dae-hyun received another report. Her landlord refuses to terminate the lease. Then buy the building. He won't sell. Double the offer. He still refuses. Dae-hyun stood silently, then smiled. If money doesn't work, fear will. At midnight, masked men surrounded the restaurant. Windows shattered. Tables overturned. Paint covered every wall. By morning, it looked destroyed. Marcus arrived first. Oh no. He called Amara immediately. She stood outside the ruined entrance, gently holding her stomach. Employees expected tears. Instead, she unlocked the front door. Let's clean. Everyone blinked. That's it. She grabbed a broom. If they made a mess, we clean it. Within minutes, neighbors appeared. Then customers. Then construction workers. Artists repainted walls. Carpenters repaired furniture. Florists brought flowers. Children washed windows. A famous singer quietly joined with a paint roller. No cameras. No announcement. Just help. By sunset, the restaurant looked even more beautiful than before. Someone hung a sign above the entrance. You cannot destroy what people love. Pictures flooded social media. Millions saw them. Reservations exploded again. Dae-hyun watched the videos in disbelief. They're making her stronger. One advisor finally whispered what everyone feared. Sir, I don't think this is about food anymore. What then? It's about hope. Dae-hyun stared silently. Hope couldn't be bought. Hope couldn't be intimidated. Hope couldn't be bribed. And for the first time in his life, he realized he was losing. 3 nights later, as Amara closed the restaurant, an elderly homeless man collapsed outside her door. Without hesitation, she rushed over despite Marcus urging her to stay back. Call an ambulance. The old man barely opened his eyes. They won't come in time. Amara knelt beside him. Don't talk. She removed her own jacket and covered him. Marcus looked worried. It's freezing. I know. She took the untouched meal she had saved for herself and placed it into the old man's trembling hands. You need this more than I do. The man looked at her with surprisingly sharp eyes. You've had a difficult month. She chuckled softly. That's one way to put it. He smiled faintly. You still chose kindness. She shrugged. My mother used to say that kindness isn't something you save for easy days. The old man slowly nodded, as if committing every word to memory. Then he reached into his worn coat and placed an old bronze pendant in her hand. Keep this safe. Amara frowned. I can't take this. You must. It belongs where the truth belongs. Before she could ask another question, the sound of approaching sirens filled the street. The old man looked past her toward the glowing lights and quietly whispered one name that made Marcus' face strain of color. Kong Min-jae. Marcus froze. Because Kong Min-jae wasn't just any name. He was the legendary founder of the Kang food empire. The man the entire country believed had died 15 years ago. Before the ambulance doors closed, the old man grabbed Amara's wrist with surprising strength. Don't let them know you have the pendant. His eyes shifted toward the black SUVs that had just stopped across the street. They're watching. The paramedics exchanged confused glances as they lifted him inside. Within seconds, the ambulance disappeared into the night. Marcus stood frozen. Amara. She looked down at the bronze pendant resting in her palm. What? Marcus swallowed hard. I've seen that symbol before. He pointed to the engraved phoenix on its surface. It was inside the original Kang headquarters. Only the founder wore that emblem. Amara frowned. But everyone says Kang Min-jae died years ago. Marcus whispered. Maybe everyone was lied to. The next morning, the news exploded. Kang Dynasty Foods announces massive expansion. Every television station covered Daehyun smiling confidently beside investors. But hidden beneath the celebration was another headline. A small independent restaurant continues to outperform major luxury chains. Daehyun switched off the television in disgust. Enough. He looked around the boardroom. I want every detail about Amara Brooks. One executive hesitated. We've investigated everything. Then investigate again. Hours later, a nervous investigator entered carrying a thin folder. Sir, there's something unusual. Daehyun snatched it away. What? There are almost no records before she turned 18. He looked up. What do you mean? It's as if someone erased her past. Across town, Amara couldn't stop thinking about the pendant. After closing the restaurant, she searched online archives. Nothing. No photographs, no matching symbols. Just dead ends. Then she noticed something hidden inside the pendant. A tiny latch. She carefully opened it. Inside, a faded photograph. A younger Kang Min-jae stood smiling beside a woman wearing a chef's apron. In front of them, a little black girl no older than 4 held both of their hands. Amara's breathing stopped. The little girl's necklace matched the one she had worn in the only childhood photo she still possessed. No. Marcus stared. That's impossible. Amara's hands trembled. I don't remember them. Before they could say another word, someone knocked on the restaurant door. A woman in her 70s entered quietly. She introduced herself as Han Soo-jin. The moment she saw the pendant, tears rolled down her face. So, he finally found you. Amara stepped closer. You know him? I worked for Chairman Kang for 40 years. She smiled sadly. And I carried you when you were a baby. Silence swallowed the room. Amara whispered, Who am I? The elderly woman took a deep breath. 26 years ago, Chairman Kang secretly funded culinary schools for children from poor families around the world. He believed talent should never depend on wealth. Your mother was one of those students. Amara listened without blinking. She became one of the finest chefs he had ever met. They opened community kitchens together. They fed thousands. But when the chairman's sons discovered he planned to leave much of his fortune to a charitable culinary foundation, they rebelled. Marcus leaned forward. What happened? They wanted an empire. He wanted a legacy. So they convinced the public he was becoming senile. They took control of the company. And your mother refused to support them. Amara felt tears forming. What happened to her? Soo-jin lowered her head. She died protecting you during the fire that destroyed one of the community kitchens. Amara covered her mouth. The chairman blamed himself. He hid you. He erased every record connecting you to the Kang family, so they could never use you. Marcus slowly sat down. So this whole time, she wasn't their enemy. Sujin nodded. She was the founder's final promise. Before anyone could process the revelation, dozens of black vehicles surrounded the restaurant. Dae-hyun walked in. His expensive suit contrasted sharply with the warmth of the little dining room. I'll make this simple. His eyes landed on the pendant. I'll give you $50 million for that necklace. Amara looked at him calmly. It's not for sale. 100 million. No. His smile disappeared. You don't know what you're holding. She answered quietly. I think I do. His voice became cold. Take it. Several bodyguards stepped forward. Customers immediately stood between them and Amara. An elderly woman raised her cane. You'll have to go through us first. A university student stood beside her. So will you. One by one, every customer rose to their feet. Delivery drivers, office workers, grandmothers, tourists, parents with children. No one moved aside. Marcus smiled. You picked the wrong restaurant. Dae-hyun realized something he had never experienced before. Money had bought him buildings, power, influence, fear. But it couldn't buy loyalty like this. He turned to leave. This isn't over. Amara replied softly. It already is. The following day, every major news network received an anonymous package. Inside were original documents signed by Kang Min-jae. Video recordings, financial records, personal letters, and one final statement. If these documents are ever released, it means those I trusted have betrayed the values this company was built upon. The nation watched in disbelief. The founder had never abandoned his vision. His own family had stolen it. Share prices collapsed. Government investigations began within hours. Investors fled. Former employees came forward with decades of hidden evidence. Within a week, Dae-hyun resigned in disgrace. Criminal investigations followed. The Kang Empire, once considered untouchable, crumbled under the weight of its own secrets. Days later, Amara received a message from the hospital. The elderly man wanted to see her. She hurried there. He looked stronger now. Still old. Still smiling. I knew you'd protect it. Amara sat beside him. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He chuckled. Would you have believed me? She laughed through tears. Probably not. He reached for her hand. Your mother once cooked me a bowl of soup. I asked her what made it taste different. Amara listened quietly. She said, people can taste whether you cooked with love or with pride. He smiled. I never forgot. Tears rolled freely down Amara's cheeks. I miss someone I barely remember. You remember more than you think. He gently touched her heart. It's all here. Several months later, the restaurant had expanded into 3 locations. Not luxury restaurants. Community restaurants. Every Friday, meals were free for anyone in need. Young chefs received scholarships. Single parents worked flexible hours. No one was turned away because they couldn't afford to eat. The sign outside every location carried the same words. Food is love served with dignity. One rainy afternoon, Amara went into labor while preparing soup. Marcus laughed nervously. Can you please stop cooking for 5 minutes? She smiled between contractions. Turn off the stove first. Hours later, a healthy baby girl filled the hospital room with her first cries. Marcus wiped his eyes. She already has your lungs. The elderly founder gently held the baby. What will you name her? Amara smiled. Grace. Because grace carried us farther than revenge ever could. Months later, the original Kang headquarters reopened. Not as a corporate office. As the Kang Culinary Foundation. Its mission was simple. Find talented young chefs regardless of race, nationality, or background. Give them the opportunity someone once gave Amara's mother. Above the entrance hung a bronze phoenix identical to the pendant. Underneath were the founder's final words. An empire built on power will eventually fall. A legacy built on kindness will feed generations. On opening day, thousands gathered outside. Some remembered the scandal. Others simply came for the food. Among the crowd stood people who had helped rebuild Amara's restaurant after it was vandalized. The fisherman, the farmer, the florist, the little girl who had once called her baby lucky. Even the elderly woman who said the soup reminded her of her grandmother. Every one of them received the first meal free. Before serving the first bowl, Amara looked toward the camera crew covering the event. She smiled. If my mother could see this. She paused, holding back tears. I think she'd tell me to stop talking and feed the people. Everyone laughed. The applause seemed endless. And somewhere in the crowd, the old founder smiled with quiet satisfaction. Not because his family name had been restored, but because the values he nearly lost had finally found a home again. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. What do you think was the biggest turning point? Amara's kindness, the pendant, or the community that refused to abandon her? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder that kindness is never weakness. Sometimes, it's the one ingredient that changes everything. As the restaurant doors opened and the first guests walked in, little Grace giggled from her mother's arms. The future no longer belonged to a dynasty. It belonged to everyone gathered around the same table.